Hello, welcome. What's this? What have these two got in common? Don't worry, you're in the right place. This is the right channel. That was a Harrier jump jet, and this is a tornado. Well, they've got a couple of things in common, both used by the British Armed Services, and they're aeroplanes. Well, that's two things. Anyway, what they've got in common with this is the question. Let's have a look at this. This is a tape. It's a Zonal, and it's one of the last tapes made in Great Britain, or the UK, or whatever you want to call it. And we'll see if it's any good. It's marked up, as you can see here, as being a superferric. Well, what does that mean, and what's the end result going to be? Let's have a look. This is still sealed. It's a brand new tape. It's never been used, and the wrapping is incredibly clear. But you see there, it's made in, well, it says UK. Taking it out now, and here we've got the shell. It is a nice shell. It's nice and clear. Nothing too special about it, but it looks functional. And it has 5 screws, Phillips type. The J card is plain but functional. It's got noise reduction. These must be to military spec because they've been used in military operations, and apparently the BBC used the reel-to-reel version. Ministry of Defence approved tapes. So that means they're either going to be extremely good or real clunkers. Which ones are going to be? Let's find out, because it says superferric. You never know, it might actually be good. We've all heard of $800 screwdrivers. Well, maybe we've got one that's actually worth the money. Let's have a look and we'll find out. Other than the word superferric, it hasn't got much written on here. It doesn't tell us if it's anything special. It's just literally a J card to be able to write on, and that's it. There is no wrapping as such. There is no marketing. It just is Zonal Superferric. So we're assuming it's going to be cobalt doped or something similar to that. And hopefully, because it's a superferric, we'll be able to get some decent levels out of it. Because apparently, when they do the superferrics, the idea is that you can get more signal onto it, but it raises the noise level slightly. So we'll see what this one does. We'll compare it with the last one I did, which was the Mitsubishi, where it's relevant, because that was a superferric. Here's the Audacity trace. It's not the best one I've ever seen, but look at that. It's in there. It's got the right sort of shapes. There's the odd anomaly, like these two buff tings are not exactly the same left to right. Well, they sound okay. You can see here the top channel's got slightly fluffier and slightly taller signals than the bottom channel. I'll point out here that I am being a bit pernickety about this, because you're not going to hear the differences really, because they're very small, but they do exist. So, seeing as people claim to be able to hear the differences between cables and various other things, I think it's important that we should have, if there is a difference, I'm going to point it out to you, and you can make up your own mind. Looking at the silence here, bearing in mind it's cobalt doped, it's got a silence of minus 76 dB, which is actually better than the Mitsubishi, which was at minus 75 dB. Time for a bit of music by Patricos, Dynamic and Clean. That sounds really good. You can always rewind if you want to hear a bit more, or put it in the comments if you'd like me to put longer lengths of music on, or different music. But I think that sounds pretty dang good. Of course, at this point, I could just say, well, you've seen the tape, you've seen where it's come from, and you've heard it, and it sounds pretty good to me. But we're not going to do that. We're going to actually look properly and see what the results are of the relative tests so we can actually quantify it and see whether it's as good or as bad as any other tapes. That's the way to do it. That's what we're going to do. First of all, we have the white noise at 0 dB. That's looking quite respectable. And then at minus 20 dB, so it's got a little bit of a different shape, but it's very good. 0 dB pink noise looking very nice, and at minus 20 dB, still looking very nice. It's still showing a very slight sign of that step. So now we're looking at the 0 dB 1 kilohertz, and you can see that's very respectable. Just got a small harmonic peak there. The minus 20 is lovely and flat, and exactly what you'd expect to see. The 0 dB 3 kilohertz is looking very respectable, with only one peak there. Minus 23 kilohertz is looking exceptionally good. There is no... it's flat. That's what it should be, and it is. It is one of those anomalies I was going to point out to you. The sweep on the high levels there, on the right-hand side, you can see it's a totally different shape to the one on the left-hand side. So the left-hand side has got a very much more linear response than the right-hand side for the frequencies. But the fact is that it's the only difference is the levels in terms of what the signal is. So why is it like that? It's an interesting one, but I thought I'd point it out because this is greater than on some other tapes. The Mitsubishi Black Diamond, it had the same shape of the sweep at minus 20 dB and at 0 dB. The only difference was that the high-end frequencies did drop off slightly. There weren't all the lumps in it. So now we've had the thing, we've looked at all of the charts and they all look pretty good, with the exception of the frequency sweep. And we don't know what that's going to look like, because although we've heard the music, we know there's reasonable expectation that the music is sounding good for a good reason, but we don't actually know how high it's going. So we'll have a look at that and we'll see what implications the non-linearity and stuff has had. It's an interesting science, this, isn't it? Looking at this, which is the 0 dB sweep, and you can see there it's got good output, and it goes right up to in excess of 14 kilohertz, and then it starts to have a little bit of effort and a little bit of we've got a bit of harmonics coming in there around about the 17 kilohertz, but nevertheless it's got an output up to 20 kilohertz, which for a ferric is good. So for a superferric, that's really, it's doing what it says on the packet, really, isn't it? It's being super. And this is where that non-linearity comes in. Looking at the minus 20 dB sweep, you can see there the actual spikes are a bit higher relative to the bass sounds, and it goes up to 17 kilohertz. Then there's 18 kilohertz is a bit down, 19 kilohertz is doing okay, 19.5 kilohertz is doing okay. There isn't the harmonic distortion on this, so that's why it's looking a bit cleaner. And also the actual levels are slightly higher than the noise relatively. So what that means is that this is a very good tape. It's got good high level recording characteristics. It doesn't go into distortion particularly easily, but it would benefit from not bashing. If you're going to bash the red, then you're asking for trouble with any tape actually. But this one will take a reasonable amount of bashing. The Mitsubishi was a slightly more stable as far as the linearity was concerned, but effectively they're both very good tapes, and this one, if you can get one at a good price, well worth having. The responses on there are superb, and the low noise value is really good. So I would say get yourself one if you can. This is not an £800 screwdriver. This one's good value for money. So if you can get one, but don't pay too much for it. It is still only a ferric, even if it's a super ferric, it's still only a ferric. So you could improve the noise with a good Type 2 over this one. But having said that, you're not going to be disappointed in the performance of this. But if you're the sort of person that can hear the difference between one set of cables and another, then maybe you're not going to like the odd peculiarities with it. But in my opinion, most people wouldn't be able to hear any problems with it. They'd only hear the good stuff. Anyway, that's it. If you've been watching this far, I'm pretty sure you've got something out of this video. So maybe you'd like to click on the like button. That will get more people to be able to see it. And if you really did like it, maybe you'd like to subscribe so you can see more.